Welcome back to another episode of Today's Technique. Today we are going to paint cloth. So for cloth there are like multiple things you need to consider. Like what type of cloth is my character wearing? For example, is it like leather or is it more of a silk they're wearing? And you can like have scales on how rough you want your material to look like at the end, and also how much it is through something. So through a battle or through dust and grime of the environment. For our example, I'm going to show you how you create a normal rope, like normal wool, I would say, or mostly on the shinier side, and then also a leather. We can do both with our character. Yeah, we have our gun pouch for our leather, and we have some nice cloth. For that, we will take both because I will use more of a reddish color this time. It of course depends of what color your cloth will be, but I like to start with burnt red. It's called. It's a reddish brown, so brown with a bit of red in it. We just have normal red, and also now we use ivory. If you have watched the last episode, I've also talked about fluorescent paints. The thing is, now we want to reduce the saturation the brighter we get, instead of adding saturation again, which we did with our edge highlight. So for that, we are just starting off with base coating our cloth. I'll just demonstrate that on those small sections, they go a bit faster. And again, you don't need to worry about being clean. If you have watched the episode about cleanup, you can just go back to that step and then clean up what you have accidentally touched with the paint. But this should go very quickly. We don't need to be 100% hitting all the spots, but most of them. And we just quickly add that here. I will, for convenience sake, not paint the underside for now, just so we can quicker demonstrate. So, giving it a quick dry. For leather, we mostly have our highlights outside. Outside means on the edges of our material. That is mostly because leather is more of a matter material. That's how I can say it. Of course, there's shiny leather, but like most leather you see is like rugged and worn and has like lost the shine. And because it is a heavy duty material, that means it rubs off on the areas, like jeans, for example, is also one. The original jeans, not the ones we have nowadays. But that means we just make a rough mixture of our ivory and burned red or brown. We want to have it more on the darker side for now. And then we can use, like last time, edge highlighting to give our material more of a flare. So we have here our material, and we just drag our brush alongside of our pouch. We can make it a bit sloppier in some areas. Just one go for now. And because we said we have it a bit more rougher, we can just dab at some areas or brighter color like, let's say, roughly 40% of the area we have painted before. We just dab that on, just so we get a bit more of a color variation. Let that dry a bit, and while this is drying, we can switch over to our other cloth. The thing is with ropes and stuff, we want to have a bit more of a color in there instead of just brown. So I'm again making a roughly 50-50 mix of our red and brown, and we just take the top facing parts of our cloth, meaning we ignore the folds and just paint the areas that are top-sided. Something like that. We can already add a bit more red in it and take that a bit more to the edges. Again, you can take your time if you like, but again, I am very impatient, so you just quickly add that. And if you want to add a bit more of a oomph to it, because we here have this top part and also this bottom line, you can see the reflection of it. And there we basically want to add like our highlight for our cloth. So we just run that along the edges and also up top here. Can always use the natural light as our guide. Something like this. And we also want to have it again with an edge highlight. Bit more popping out. So, and now we can let this dry and turn our attention back to our gun pouch. For that, I'm now mixing in a more ivory. I accidentally added too much water. I need to do it again. But here, it's a nice desaturated effect. That is what we basically want to have. And then again, you run along the edges. And here you can, instead of swiping your brush, just dabbing it onto your model. And that gives it this like rugged look. And like last time I showed you, we can just wipe it off. And that is easier to go from the edge to the inside, because when we press down our brush, we leave a blob. If we just wick it, the end part will be, yeah, you can't really see that. I think I can demonstrate that here with a bit of red. So we have our brush loaded, and you want to create a nice sharp line. You brush down and then you pull, and you see this part here where you initially brush down will have a blob. So what we basically want to do is touch the edge and then quickly wick away. You can either do it with your whole arm. What I mostly do is this movement. We go back and forth. And with that, you can create a nicer edge. It's something you can, of course, train with normal pencil and paper, or you can do it like here and just with your brush and a bit of your least favorite paint and just try to train that. Also, like how close you can get them together and how quick you can do it and how much they are the same length and everything. This is also important if you want to use a technique called cross-hatching, which I think we can nicely demonstrate here on the top part or the front part of him. But back to our pouch. So we load our brush, check we have the right consistency we want, and again just basically dabbing it along our line. Here, and then can also take the inside and do a few hatches here and there. You can also train your lines a bit, and that we will again let dry a tiny bit, but I'm already prepping our highest highlight point, meaning we mainly have our ivory color mixed in. And because we painted so thin, it should now already have dried. So, and with that, we just basically, here we only really want to dab the edges. And if it looks a bit too white, how I think it looks to me now, we can again use a bit of a wash to tonally mix it all together. So no worries if you take it a bit too light like I did now. We can leave that to dry and then we can add a wash. Okay, now again to our other one, to our red rope. For that we take a bit more red and just we want to layer that on top of our previous painted colors and go more and more towards the edge, just so we make it look a bit more touched by the light. Something like this. And of course you would have it also here on the inside, but for demonstration purposes I'm just showing you the upper side. But you can think now, basically you want to flip your model and again look where the light hits it. So it's here where you want to have your light spot. So this should be red and the rest should be brown. And if we flip it around, you already see it has more of this gleam coming out here and gives it a bit more of a, yeah, more spectacle is the best word I can think I can find. Now we are at a point where we have most of our techniques down, and now we just want to paint different materials. So Our leather should be dried now, so we take a bit water and our brown. Basically just create a bit of colored water. Again, can check on our cloth how fast it soaks in, and then we can just wash over and knock off a bit of that shine. And we want to mostly stop in the edges of the armor panels, or you can take again a moist brush and dab it a bit away from the areas where you don't want it to stay. So nice. Now we have it a bit. It's still a bit too much, but I think you get the idea. But this is how we basically draw different kinds of cloth. So we check how rough our material is or how silky it is, and also if it gets desaturated or saturated. For this cloth here, for example, I left out the ivory now completely, and it still looks very nice. We of course can add a bit of ivory to like imitate a bit of that shine that some cloths produce. But if you don't want to, you can of course skip that step, or you can mix the red in with the ivory to create a bit more of a pinkish color to add to the shine, or you can just leave it how it is now. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next episode.